Hope you're well. Thank you very much for joining today's ISMM webinar. I'm Dave Millichap, ISMM Corporate Account Director, and you're all very welcome. The session today will last for 30 minutes, questions at the end. So do see the chat box function on your screens, pose any questions, and I can ask our presenter, Heather Townsend, towards the end. Without further ado, I would like to end. Heather is an award-winning and best-selling author of the FT Guide to Business Networking and the Go-To Expert. She specialises in helping her clients do the really difficult bit of business clients. Over the last 12 months, she's helped her clients add over one client portfolio, and I know she's going to deliver a fantastic session for us today. Heather will be talking to you. I'd like to hand over to Heather. Heather, over to you.
The most powerful business development tool available to you that's in many of your minds as you sit and listen to here today. And hopefully by the end of this webinar, you're going to go away thinking, how can we exploit this within our organisation? Find out a little bit about you. So I want you to just answer a poll and just tell me if you can pitch this at the right level. Some votes coming in, excellent to see, and it's still early days. We've got a very heavy sales contingent, which is absolutely fabulous because sales is what I'm going to be talking about now. So still got a few more votes coming in, so let's just give that. See, I know we've got a couple of people on the phones. We're not going to get everybody to vote. And I'm just going to give that close poll, share results. So interestingly, we very much have 60% of people who are, well no, 72% of people who have a sales target and 20% are managing a sales team. So what I wanted to let you know about today, I'm going to be looking at it very much from a perspective of an individual who has a sales target. There are a huge amount of stuff you can do with LinkedIn about marketing a wider corporate business. I'm not going to be looking at that. I'm going to be looking at it through the lens of I am an individual and I need to bring in business for my company. So it'll be really interesting to see. Let's just hide the results. Let's run another poll. Let's just launch the poll. So how do you use LinkedIn? Where are you in the LinkedIn curve? And the votes are just starting to come through. I'm going to be really fascinated to where everybody's going to be coming in on this. Really fascinated on that. Votes coming in. And nearly everybody's voted, so I'm just going to give it 3, 2, 1, close poll. Let's share the results. Now, interestingly, most people are either in the, I'm still waiting for the great results, I maybe use it occasionally. There's probably 1 or 2 people that are sitting there, what's the word for it, maybe slightly smug and going regularly and I get great results. So it's really interesting to see, and I'm going to be, because I don't have that much time, I'm going to be looking at LinkedIn at quite a high level and strategic level, very much looking at it as a networking tool. After all, that's typically what I work with my clients to do. It's to help them generate referrals. Of course, not just to new clients, but also to generate more from their existing clients. So let's just hide the results. Let's just go back here. What are we going to be looking at? Well, we're going to be looking at the benefits of using LinkedIn. And hopefully most of you will know this. I'm also going to dig down, because quite a few of you are in that position where you're using LinkedIn but not getting the great results. And I'll explain why. And then I'm going to look at a headline LinkedIn strategy, because you never hear people talking about a LinkedIn strategy, in my opinion. And then I'm going to do a little bit about what to think about when crafting your LinkedIn profile. And then finally, I'm going to look at a regular 9-minute daily routine on LinkedIn. I just want to make sure that people can find the question box. Just let me know where you are in the world. Just drop it into the question box. Just let me know where you are in the world. I think it's always good to get a real feel of where are people in the country. We've got Dave from London. And see where else we've got people coming from. We've got the Isle of Wight, we've got London, we've got Cecilia from Romania, we've got Christine from Doncaster, we've got Nigel from York, we've got Debbie from the Northwest, we've got Northamptonshire, we've got Surrey, we've got Birmingham, we've got Bulgaria. So it looks like we're very much UK, Europe centric. Now the good news is you've all found the question box. If you've got a question, do put it in that question box and I will pick them up at the end. But really looking forward to working with all of you on this webinar today. So without more ado, let's look at the benefits of using LinkedIn. And what do I see as the benefits of using LinkedIn? Well, you can see all of those benefits on the screen, but in my view, probably the biggest benefit comes down to the fact that it is the best and probably most complete people directory that we have at our disposal. You know, just go back, not even 10 years, maybe 5 years ago. How much would you have paid for a database that gave you names to at least 70% of the decision makers in your prospects? Wow. And you know, that is the primary benefit of LinkedIn. It gives you that information. And how much would some of us paid 5, 10 years ago to actually know about what our decision makers in our prospects were interested in and what they were talking about? And LinkedIn gives us that information. It gives us so much that we can find out and know about people. There's another thing that I really want to talk about. And this goes back, you know, if you go back 5, 10 years ago, you go to a networking event and your first impression with somebody would be when you shook their hand. Now, think about before you go out and meet someone that you haven't met before. Or maybe go out to a networking event and you're looking down the attendance list. You do your research, don't you? And I bet you look at LinkedIn. I bet you Google the name of the people that are really important to you. So LinkedIn helped you control that first impression that people get of you. And also, it is the first conversation that people are having with you. And given that nearly 50% of all potential clients and introducers will look at you on LinkedIn before making contact, isn't it time that we took this tool very, very seriously? Now, when I wrote the FT Guide to Business Development, I identified a 5-level relationship, not the FT Guide to Business Development. I got that wrong before, Dave, didn't I? The FT Guide to Business Networking. I only wrote that book 5 years ago, sold 15,000 copies, 6 languages. I really ought to know the name of my old book now. So very much, this is the 5-level relationship model. It's in the Go-To Experts and How to Make Partners. It's in all of my books because it fundamentally underpins good relationship management. So what is the 5 levels? Well, level 1 is about identify. That is where somebody becomes on your radar. So when the ISMM sent out an email saying, we've got this webinar, we had a level 1 relationship. We had an identify relationship. But you weren't going to recommend me there. You're not going to introduce me at level 1, identify. You hardly know me. There isn't the trust there. There isn't the credibility there. And so you've got to take that to level 2. And that's about connect. That's where you have one-way and two-way dialogue. It could be you read their blog. It could be you read a tweet. It could be you shake their hands at an event and have a polite conversation. And probably to put a metaphor in your mind, think about this as the sniffing dog stage of the relationship. It is where you're thinking, do I like you? And can I see a benefit to taking this relationship further? Now, a lot of people, when they're networking, when they're using, whether face-to-face or online, stay within level 1 and level 2. They collect contacts, i.e. weak bonds, low trust. Now, LinkedIn is absolutely fabulous at helping you get people to level 1 and level 2 because it's so searchable. Everyone pretty much is there. But, and now we're at level 2, all of us here, because we've been working, we've been having a dialogue. Okay, it's one way pretty much at the moment, but we're at level 2. I bet if I went to any one of you and said, look, I've delivered you a great webinar, will you recommend me? It's too early, isn't it? It's all a bit awkward, isn't it? It's that thing called premature solicitation that Ivan Meisner talks about, founder of BNI. It's too soon. We've not established the credibility. The trust isn't there. And that means you've got to take the relationship offline to take it to level 3. This is where you sit down and have a one-to-one conversation. You know, it could be on the phone, it could be on Skype, it could be on FaceTime. It might have to pinch be a live chat. And this is where the trust really deepens. Now, you can't do this on LinkedIn, but you sure can use LinkedIn at level 2 to ask people for a phone call. So what happens? Well, let's presume that actually you have a good conversation, you like them, you start to do your next steps. Well, you'll gravitate towards level 4, collaborate. This is where you find yourself working together. Now, maybe it's just you're a sounding board. Maybe you actually are a client or a supplier of each other. Maybe you recommend each other. But the litmus test is that you can ring them up without a pre-agreed agenda, and they will take your call. Level 5 is about your inner circle, where the relationship has got so strong, it's moved outside of its original sphere. Maybe they were a client or a customer of yours, and now they're a good friend. Maybe they're an introducer or referral source, and now they're a good friend. Or maybe you talk to your clients because you work with them and sell them in, let's say you sell them widgets, but they start to ask you more stuff about running their operation, i.e. the relationship has started to move outside of its original scope. That's a level 5 relationship. And LinkedIn is brilliant for keeping quick visibility at level 4 and level 5 with the people that really matter to you. So why don't we get the results we want using LinkedIn? Because most of you are not getting the results you want using LinkedIn. So why is that? And the first one I see is there's no plan. You know, sit there and be honest. How many of you's first interaction with LinkedIn was, well, I've just got to get in and start doing stuff? That means you don't have a plan. You need to take a step back and think, how is LinkedIn going to help me with my networking strategy, my business development, my personal marketing strategy? How does that link into my plan to generate more from my current clients or get referrals to other clients? How does this all link? What is the how and what is the what that I'm going to do and how am I going to use it? And far too often people do not have this level of granular clarity. So is it any result? Any reason why? Oh, sorry, get my teeth back. Is it not a surprise that we don't get the results we want out? And we only had 1 or 2 people on this webinar that put their hand up and said, I'm using it regularly and getting great results. And I would expect, even if you're using it occasionally, I would expect if you're getting great results, you would be using it regularly. So the first step is to take a step back and go, let's put in a level of plan and strategy, and I will take you through a bit later what needs to be in that plan and that strategy. Next thing I see is a mindset issue. And given that nearly all of this call is about you've got a business development target, you are there to win sales. The temptation is to go in quickly and go in hard because you want to win those sales. And LinkedIn, if you do that, isn't going to be as effective. One of the mindsets you've got to think about this is a networking tool, therefore build the relationships and let the sales come second. How many of you have been pitched immediately after you connect with someone? And that doesn't feel great, does it? Now, of course, you'll tell me that sales is a numbers game. I completely agree with you. And, you know, you send a certain amount of emails and some of them will land. And you will start the result as a result of that. But I'm talking about using LinkedIn as a free system that everyone should be able to do. And the key is to think about use it to build relationships and the sales will come later. I see another sort of mindset, which is, well, I'll get my profile right and then won't do anything. Well, that's just the same as going, well, I'm going to go and shake a couple of hands at an event and then the work will come to me. It doesn't work that way. You know, you've got to progress the nurture the relationship. You've got to go through the sales process. The same is on LinkedIn. You need to actually use it. And a good way to think about LinkedIn is it's the same rules when you're face-to-face networking as when you're on LinkedIn. Next one I see is about inconsistent usage. You know, when you're not busy or maybe someone's banging a drum saying we need to get the pipeline up. then I see people going into LinkedIn and doing stuff, and then you get busy and you're, oh, no, I can't do this now, I haven't got time for this. The best results from LinkedIn come from being consistent. It's like any good sales tool, little and often works so much better than big magnanimous gestures that don't go anywhere. So what should be in your LinkedIn strategy? We've talked a lot about this now, and then there's only two key parts of your LinkedIn strategy, but so many of us don't do this. So what are the two parts? The first part is craft your profile to get the right reader to take action. And you think, yeah, of course, that makes a lot of sense, but how many of you know exactly who that right reader is? That comes back to really thinking about, what are my business development targets? What am I trying to achieve? Is it about going to introducers, influencers, multipliers, gatekeepers, or is it going direct to client? Or is it a mixture of both? Who is the right reader? And then what do you want them to think, feel, but most importantly do as a result of reading your profile? And that's why your profile needs to be crafted. I see far too many profiles where people have gone in quickly, have written a couple of sentences, maybe they've made it their online CV. Just a bit of a rhetorical question to you. How many of you have ever picked up a CV and thought, that's a damn good read? We haven't, have we? So it's important that you get the right mindset, that this is the first conversation with someone that you want to be chatting with. What do you need to tell them in that conversation for them to take the next step and to feel and think the right way about you? And this is what I mean about this. The next part of your strategy is to implement a regular routine to bump into the right people on LinkedIn. So let's look in a little bit more detail about how to craft the perfect LinkedIn profile. And LinkedIn has a reputation for being the professionals network, i.e., you've got to be completely professional there. Now, the problem is when you're completely professional, you don't show up with the whole of your personal brand. You only tend to show up with your skills, experience, and strengths. And that's the sort of stuff you put on your CV, isn't it? And as I was saying, you've never written a CV where you thought, yeah, this person looks really interesting, I'd love to get to know them more. You don't, do you? Because they're cutting out parts of their personal brand. And your personal brand is made up of three core elements. The red circle, which is your values, beliefs, and drivers. This is the stuff that's under the hood, the stuff that people can't see. But actually, this is the stuff when you let people know about it, you become far more likable, far more relatable to, and the rapport starts to flow. Now the next circle is your strengths, behaviour, skills, interests, knowledge, image, qualifications. It's heavily influenced by those values, beliefs and drivers, and it's how you communicate your personal brand to the external world. And then finally there's your reputation. That is driven by people's perceptions of you and what they see from your strengths, behaviour, skills, interests, knowledge, image. And it's really important that when you think about your LinkedIn profile, you highlight the parts of your personal brand which really matter. Now, you might be going, but how much personal stuff, how much business stuff? It's got to be at least 80-90% business stuff. And it might be that when you let your voice shine through, people get your drivers, your beliefs, your values, what makes you you. But it's important that people know enough about you that they feel able and want to have a conversation with you. Then you want to actually go and collect stuff, credibility statements, as I talk about in the Go-To Expert, credibility stories, as I talk about in the Go-To Expert, i.e. statements are little sentences that demonstrate your credibility. They're normally fact-based and verifiable. Credibility stories are typically sales stories, as you probably know them by another name, that demonstrate your credibility. And you want to bring all this stuff together. What makes you you? But what does a reader need to know to take action? How do you want them to think and feel? And what are the key facts that they need to know to take action? And it's really important that you do that filtering process. and you really make each word fight for its place, what does your ideal client, customer, referrer, gatekeeper, influencer need to know in order to ideally take the next step and get in contact with you? Next thing is, make sure your profile all the way through tells a story. You read so many profiles that are built around the whole, I am a sales professional with 20 years experience in the so-and-so sector. Is anybody getting bored yet? That's the thing. You see lots of things with eyes, and it needs to flow. So you need a hook to start with, something that compels people to read further. You need that first paragraph to be your elevator pitch, because if they're only going to read that much, make sure you've got the stuff that you know you want them to read. So it's really important that you really tell a story. You attract people in, you compel people to read the way through. But most importantly, you help people take action. Now the next thing is, what should be in your regular routine on LinkedIn? And what I'm going to tell you can be done in 9 minutes a day. Yes, I did mean that, 9 minutes a day. Once your profile is where it needs to be, what can be done in 9 minutes a day? And here are the things I do that should be in 9 minutes a day. The first thing I would do is go and check your notifications up in the top right-hand side of the screen, because these are people that are already having a dialogue with you. So it makes sense, and it's good manners to start the conversation there. The second thing to do is actually share a news feed, something on the news feed that your ideal audience will find valuable. That comes back to your strategy. Who do I want to be reading stuff about me? What do they find interesting? Now, it can be very tempting. It's all going to be about my business and how we're great at X, Y, and Z. No, take a step back. It shouldn't always be self-serving. It needs to be about what your audience needs to read. And ideally, different content for where they are in their buying journey. Then it's worthwhile commenting and liking on some interesting updates within there. LinkedIn has its own blogging facility. Publish a post on LinkedIn. It's great. All of your first degree connections will get a notification, unless they've unsubscribed, to when you publish a post. Think how many people won't take your newsletter but could get some content through you that way. Now, don't put sales content on. Really think about this as, how can I add value to the people I want to be attracted to me? That normally isn't out-and-out sales content. Then go and look at who's viewed your profile and respond to anybody that's interested. You know, this is equivalent of somebody at an event coming up and shaking your hand. This is somebody that, okay, let's be honest, 80–90% of the time they'll be nosy. But what about that 10–20% of the time? That's an opportunity for you to start a dialogue. And lastly, use the My Network option to find excuses to get in touch with your network. You know, how many tools have you got that tells people birthdays, that tells people when they've got an anniversary with a role, that tells people when they've published something, that tells people when you've got a new job? That is an opportunity to get in touch. And as salespeople, we're always looking at excuses to get in touch, and LinkedIn gives you that. Let's go and summarize before we go into questions. So I want you, while I'm summarizing, to be thinking of some questions, because I've taken you through a very high-level look at LinkedIn. So I'm really keen to hear some questions that you've got. So what points do I really want to emphasize? Treat LinkedIn as part of your overall network. It needs to be part of that networking strategy, your business development strategy. Do then work out how you'll use it to achieve your business development goals. If you just go in there and do, which, let's be honest, many salespeople do, you're not going to get the benefits for the time you use on it. Then it's about crafting a profile that get the right readers to take the right action, which I'm guessing is get in touch. And then finally, use LinkedIn daily to get the maximum benefit. So I'm going to leave you with a closing remark before we go to questions. Used in the right way, LinkedIn will turbocharge your business development. Right, Dave, do you want to run the questions?
Yeah, fabulous. Thank you for that, Heather. A couple of questions coming in. At what time of the day is it best, would you say it's best to publish articles or write posts on LinkedIn?
What time of the day?
Is there an optimum time, do you think? or times
It's
a
one of
week?
those things that there always is an optimum time. Now, I could tell you those optimum times, but they might not be right for your audience. So this is about actually chatting with your clients, chatting with the people that you tend to work with, and just asking them, what time, what sort of times do you find yourself on social media? Well, on LinkedIn, I tend to find that Monday to Friday gets better traction on my updates and results. I tend to find that people, when they do their commute, will often look at social media. When they take a break, will often look at social media. So I often find during their commuting time, at lunchtime, or at those sort of 11 o'clock, 4 o'clock sort of cup of tea time, take that. But that's my audience. You need to go out and talk to your audience and find when they're using it, because it may be different.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for that, Heather. In the summary section of your LinkedIn your personal profile, would it not be better to talk about your business and not your own personal development?
Okay, let's go back to what we're talking about here. It's about, what does my ideal reader need to know to take the right bit of action? And typically they want to know that you're credible. They want to know that you're good at what you do. They want to know a bit about you. They're not interested about your personal development. Remember the old adage, it's about sell the sizzle, not the steak. They don't want to know how you got there. They want to know that you can help them. So that's why it's important that it will be about your business, but it will be about you as a person as well. Because remember, people buy people. And even in this interconnected world, people buy people. But it goes back to, what are your goals for using LinkedIn? Who do you want reading your account, your profile? Actually, if your goals have changed and you're thinking about, I want this because I'm looking for my next opportunity, you might want to talk a bit more about you and yourself as well as your business. But remember, credibility statements don't necessarily need to be about you personally. They can be about your company, your company's track record, some great testimonials, what key people say about your business and your organization. Remember, you need to do that research and find out what is actually needed for people to take the right action as a result of reading your profile.
Fantastic. I think most people have a free account, Heather. What are your thoughts on the importance of having and upgrading to a premium account?
And it's interesting, for most of my time on LinkedIn, I've been on a free account. And actually everything that I've told you today can be done on a free account. When is it worth having a premium account? Well, I've just tipped over into a premium account, and one of the reasons is that I regularly get 10 plus people looking at my profile a day, and I really want to know who's looking at my profile a day. So when I only know the last 5, I'm missing out on business information that I want to know about. But let's be honest, most people on this call will not be getting that level of profile views. It's to do with my profile in the marketplace authority. I could be speaking at I'm speaking for BT to 100 of their best clients tomorrow morning. I expect that I will get people looking at my LinkedIn profile as a result. So that's one of the reasons to get a premium. The second reason to get a premium account is when you are about to do a lot of detailed marketing research, prospect research, and it's not appropriate for people to know that you're wading all over their profile. And that's in terms of, sorry, I'm getting my messages mixed up. So when you need to do a lot of prospect research, it's worth getting the premium account because the filters on the search function are so much better. Yeah, next question.
Fantastic. Very quickly, I'm just conscious of time. What do you think are the biggest mistakes you see people making on LinkedIn, Heather?
Yeah, I'm just going to answer a quick question by Dave.
Yeah.
And there's a couple by Christine, and then I'll come back and answer that one. How do you stop the torrent of messages and requests from recruitment agents? there is something called information for people wanting to contact me, and the way to do that is say, this is what I'm interested in, and let's be honest, not all recruiters and headhunters will actually sort of respect that, but it will cut off some of them. My suggestion is, whilst it's infuriating when you don't want recruiters and headhunters talking to you, actually when you do want them talking to you, you really do. So my recommendation is, with recruiters and headhunters, pick out the best ones, maintain a respectful dialogue with them, keep them at arm's length, and the good ones will respect that.
Mm-hmm.
The other ones, just block them, don't connect with them, and do that. So the message from Christine, when I was in recruitment, LinkedIn was a great tool. However, the paint industry is a lot different. Could you give me any advice? Christine, think of what you need to do as a networking strategy. Who are my customers? Who are the people that can introduce me to my customers? How do I get in front of them? What would they need to know to introduce me to get in front of them? What would my customers or future customers need to know to get in contact with me? Then use LinkedIn to search for good introducers for potential prospects. Then make sure that when you're using LinkedIn, you're putting lots of information on it that's really, really valuable to those type of people. People will get in touch with you as a result. The next thing is actually look down the list and use LinkedIn to see, right, are those people I really want to get to talk to? Who are my mutual connections? And then get your mutual connections. Ask them, how well do you know so-and-so? Would you be happy to introduce me? And LinkedIn will work really, really well there. So that last question, what were the 3 biggest mistakes that I often see? And it's really to reinforce. I see people using it with hope rather than strategy. I see people not attending to their first impression on LinkedIn the same way that they would attend to their first impression when they are meeting somebody face to face, or maybe putting in a CV or writing their bio on the website. How many times have you looked at a LinkedIn profile and thought, I don't want to read a CV, I can't get to find out who you are, and you would never put this level of poor quality English on a CV, so why are you putting it on your LinkedIn profile? And then the last thing I see is people don't use it enough. They either think either or, LinkedIn or face-to-face, and actually the power of network, the power of LinkedIn is an and tool. It's and face-to-face networking, because it makes your face-to-face networking so much more effective. And I'm going to repeat that statement that I said at the end. Used in the right way, LinkedIn will turbocharge your business development.
Fabulous, thanks Heather. A couple of people are asking if we can send around your slides. Is that possible after the presentation?
Yep, you've got a PDF of it, absolutely.
Excellent. I'll make sure that everyone gets a copy of that. I'm conscious of time, so I'd just like to extend our thanks. Heather, thank you very much for that. Very insightful and a lot of important and useful tips that people, I'm sure, will take away and start working on straight away, including myself. The recording of the webinar will be placed on our members area on the main ISMM website. I'll get that post on there tomorrow afternoon, so do have a look at that and share around with your contacts. I'd like to thank you all for your attendance and your attention this morning, and have a great afternoon, and we hope to see you all very soon. Thank you very much.